Hello, good morning. Hola, buenos días. Voy a hablar en español porque es mi lengua nativa.
Good morning. I will address you in Spanish because it is my native language. Welcome to today's event, which is taking place at the European Parliament. Thank you so much, Chair Carmen Crespo, for inviting us. It is an honour for the Long Distance Fleet Advisory Council to be here, LDAC. This is an important topic. We're talking about fisheries agreements. We would like to thank the Parliament for inviting us here. We'll try to be as brief as possible. What I'm going to do is facilitate the session. I would like to mention that yesterday we had a fruitful meeting. The rapporteurs and the moderators of the sessions contributed to it, as well as the stakeholders of the fisheries industry and NGOs. And I would like to mention that the main conclusion yesterday is that sustainable fisheries agreements are important tools at an international level. It is a tool that needs to evolve even more so that it is more integrated to the external action strategy of the European Union and as well as ocean diplomacy. Now I would like to give the floor to the different speakers who will address you today. LDAC is going to publish minutes after this meeting. And of course, we will also provide advice to the European institutions. Now I would like to give the floor to the chair of the LDAC, Ivan Lopez. He's going to give you the welcome remarks. Thank you so much, Alex.
He is the Secretary General of the LDAC and leads the excellent team we have. I'm going to be very brief as well. The important is the conclusions today and to present that. I just wanted to enhance a little bit what Alex said about yesterday's event. Yesterday's event, I think, is a very good show of what the ACs, the advisory councils in general, can do in an enhanced mode, because it was more open than the membership, which is to bring together all sides of the stakeholders, including in this case the European Parliament and the Commission, who was present throughout the whole event, and to bring together different points of view, trying to synthesize what is common to all of us. Very often in the ACs we have heard strange debates on who is right and who is wrong and about voting and all that. We are not the European Parliament. That is the job of the legislators. Our job is to give consensual advice. And what we should try is to focus more and more in what brings us together and the areas where we all agree, which are much more than we can read in social media sometimes. And that goes for both sides. Yesterday was a good example of that. We had a good debate with people from the administrations, the NGOs, the industry, the local stakeholders from countries where we have sustainable partners, fisheries partners agreements. And generally, the conclusion unanimously was that they are necessary, that they should be improved, and that they should keep a focus on sustainability, the viability of the fleets, the European fleets, who are under stringent controls, to push for more transparency, and more importantly, to make them worthwhile for the partner states and their societies. And I think that is something we all agreed, and I think it was a very good message to send to the European Commission, so that they include it in their reflections and the revision of the common fisheries policy in general and the external dimension in particular. And hopefully that they bring it to this House in a good manner for you to debate, for you to ratify the MEPs, and more importantly, for you to supervise each of the partnerships, because they need to be approved by the European Parliament, and that is a very good thing. I think that is more than enough by the chair. We were going to read the conclusions of the panels yesterday, and I think, well, Alex, maybe it's better that you say who goes next. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. So panel one took place in the morning. The title was "The Value of the European Union SFPAs with Partner Countries for International Ocean Governance and Sustainable Fisheries." The moderator and rapporteur is Daniel Boces. He's the vice chair of the LDAC Working Group 5 on cross-cutting and horizontal issues. And it was a very successful panel, and there was a good mix of voices and stakeholders, as the chair said. So I will give the floor now to Daniel, and he will read you and report you. This is only preliminary conclusions that are largely based on the recommendations we adopted in October, so they have been adopted by consensus on the SFPAs, on our advice, but also add some elements that Daniel will flag that were raised yesterday. So please take it as preliminary conclusions. We'll send you the full adopted report in a few weeks. Thank you. Please, Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Carmen, for hosting this conference. For me, it was a pleasure to moderate. I was not really a moderator. It was really, really nice to hear all the views from everyone in such a constructive manner, and we had really good discussion. So we started with a keynote speech from Mr. Millan-Mon, very useful to set up the scene and introduce the subject, and was followed by the interventions from the European Commission, stakeholders from the industry, NGOs, and the government of Spain. So we had very, very useful remarks and concrete recommendations. This is something that we were looking for in the discussion. So I will start mentioning and reading to you some of the preliminary conclusions that we achieved during the discussions. And the first one, and Alex was advancing this, everybody agreed that we should continue with SFPAs for the future. Personally, I believe it's a success story, and everybody recognized the importance, the key strategic importance for the external dimension of fisheries and EU diplomacy. And everybody thought that this framing would contribute to sustainable fisheries management, to transparency, and rule-based international cooperation, which I do think that, given the geopolitical situation, this is very important for us. Also, people mentioned that SFPA should provide a stable and predictable long-term financial, legal, and operational framework for the activity, competitiveness, and employment of the EU fleet, through a coherent and increased network of agreements. I think one of the most common references was made to a level playing field, and this was very important for everyone, ensuring that everybody plays by the same rules, EU fleets and non-EU fleets operating in the same waters, ensuring that all operators, they comply with equivalent standards and sustainable measures. Also, it was mentioned that SFPA should be integrated into the broader EU bilateral partnerships with coastal states, ensuring strategic policy coherence for sustainable development through RFMO frameworks, EU trade policy, development cooperation, amongst others. Something that was also repeatedly mentioned was the idea to improve communication on the role and benefits of SFPAs, not only in the European Union, but also in the partner countries. And it was also specifically mentioned that we need to give examples of best practices when it comes to optimization of fishing opportunities and sectoral support. This, in turn, will improve public understanding of SFPAs by shifting the focus on the narrative from access arrangement to cooperation partnerships and governance outcomes, ensuring that the primary measure of value is the contribution of fisheries governance, science, control, and socioeconomic benefits for partner countries. It was also important to actively acknowledge and address misconceptions from public opinion in partner countries. Also, the SFPA should promote participatory governance, including structured stakeholder consultation in both the EU and partner countries through, for instance, advisory groups or local platforms. In addition, the participants mentioned that there's a need to strengthen the implementation of the transparency and non-discrimination clauses. There must be a better implementation, and it should include clear definitions, monitoring, and enforcement mechanisms, including to prevent more favorable treatment to competing fleets and to promote informed stakeholder participation. It was also mentioned that we should promote full transparency as a foundation of legitimacy, including publicity of access arrangements with other countries, full list of licenses granted by the third country, timely publication of scientific and joint committee reports, identification of information gaps in the third country, etc., and the improved reporting on sectoral support and its beneficiaries. And finally, there was also a call to address the technical and access constraints that undermine the economic viability of European fleet operations. That would be all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel, for your detailed report. I hope the interpreters, we didn't read too quickly, but I believe the message is clear. Just as a clarification, because I haven't made it at the beginning, and just to make sure that everybody understands the protocol, the situation. So we decided to present first the stakeholder recommendations and then give the opportunity to the Parliament to react. That's why we haven't given the floor yet to the chair, who is obviously the host and is the person who is made possible all this. So we will give her the floor first thing after the recommendations are presented, if that's okay with you, Carmen. Yeah. So, yeah, we were told that it was better to present first the recommendation. So just to clarify this. So the second panel was will be read by Beatriz Gores, and the panelist topic was the exploring future pathways. How can the SFPAs contribute to achieve the 3 pillars of sustainability, social, economic, and environmental in partner countries? So Beatriz I will give the floor to Beatriz. She will explain the main conclusions, which is looking forward and looking how the new generation of SFPA should look like, and with some specific proposals. Please, Beatriz, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Alex.
Thank you very much. Well, we were looking to the future, we were looking forward, and what was interesting is that we had the point of view of European stakeholders, but also third country stakeholders from the administration with the COMAFAT, but also representatives of African local fisheries. So this allowed us to have point of views outside of the EU and integrate the point of view of external stakeholders and to understand their expectations regarding this new generation of SFPAs. I will go through the recommendations and the ideas, but the list is quite long, so we'll just go over them without making any comments. So the conference recommends that the next generation of SFPAs use SFPAs as a diplomatic ocean diplomacy tool. The EU will support its ratification and its implementation by third countries when it comes to the commitments they make in terms of sustainable development. So that can be SDGs, ILO conventions, voluntary conventions, FET, among others. Priority given to fish for human consumption rather than being transformed into oil in wheat in Europe and in third countries, making sure that this will this will increase actual support in terms of storage, supporting science, governance, promoting creation of jobs, making sure there will be advantages for coastal communities. All of these better conditions should encourage also disembarking by European vessels. Reinforcing synergies between different instruments, including regional programs, development cooperation, international partnerships, which we call now, to support the sectorial impact. Having practical tools to guarantee the implementation of agreements, making sure that social clauses and employment promote decent work and human rights in fisheries through effective implementation of relevant clauses of SFPAs and social clauses, including implementation objectives in terms of training, hiring, tools implementation when it comes to safety at sea and control mechanisms. It includes the role of women in fisheries, They also support the role of women in fisheries in third countries, particularly after harvesting and in the processing sector, where most of them are employed. This includes access to resources as raw materials, infrastructure, but also decision-making processes. And there's also the issue of dormant agreements. There are 9 dormant agreements today in order to get a common understanding on how to solve them. Develop through dialogue with partner countries the understanding of why these agreements are dormant. This means engaging with these countries, taking into account the resources, the governance and competitiveness of European fleets. We encourage SFPAs to work as a coordinated network that contributes to regional governance rather than isolated bilateral agreements. Having a regional approach with harmonized structures, a joint cooperation with local organizations for West Africa, the COMAFAT, for instance, the African Union, among others, making sure that control requirements are adapted to local conditions, all the while respecting regulatory framework in third countries without lowering the bar. In terms of sustainability, strengthening MCS measures through different digital tools like the ERS, and also making sure to have capacity building activities for third countries. Making sure to have mixed capacities in SFPAs that will allow third partner countries to further develop. In each SFPA, there is a clause on a cooperation between operators and mixed societies, promoting transparency of all fishing activities for mixed societies included, and impose standards for all of these operations, encouraging transparency on the ship owners to improve accountability and fight against illicit fishing. Creating a specific list of registered companies, reinforcing scientific databases through regional cooperation, improving data gathering on fishing, making sure that decision-making follows scientific advice and precautionary measures, having a dedicated budget for communication and participation in SFPAs, to improve transparency, visibility, and informed participation of stakeholders to negotiations and implementation. Having sufficient financial and human resources for negotiating SFPAs to make sure that these agreements are concluded, renewed, and implemented in an efficient and fast way. And increasing the European budget dedicated to SFPAs within the next MFF. So 2028, 2034. This would improve mutual trust between the EU and partner countries through long-term cooperation between different fleets by having a stable, visible and cooperative framework. Thank you.
Merci, Beatrice. I'm going to pass now to the panel 3, which what took place in the afternoon. It was about how the SFPAs work in practice, and some of the operational and practical aspects of them. We got a good mix of people from ship owners and representatives of the fishing fleets that are operating in those countries. We had some representatives of African administrations here, and also independent consultants from countries such as Guinea-Bissau or Mauritania. And also from Senegal, from the artisanal fishers, so we got a very good views. I'm going to pass the floor. There are 3 sub-panels. There are very short recommendations. The first one is on the deep sea and demersal fisheries, and that was excellently moderated yesterday by our colleague Carlos Aldereguía from the Junta de Andalucía. The rapporteur now is going to be Ivan, the chair of the LDAC.
Well, by delegation, I hope I am up to the task, Carlos. So the main recommendations for the demersal and deep-sea fisheries panel was to improve transparency on all fleets fishing the same stocks, promoting equal standards and a level playing field, to address technical and access constraints that undermine the economic viability of the European fleet operations, to base access on sound science and sustainability evidence on the determination of the surplus, while ensuring predictability and stability for EU fleets through the life of the protocol. To also consider benefits to local economies while acknowledging the contribution and long-term benefits that the European Union partnership brings, and to protect artisanal fisheries and coastal communities in implementation of the SFPAs through concerted management practices like technical measures including spatio-temporal closures, zoning, and other of the like. Thank you.
Okay, so panel 3.2 was about tuna fisheries. It was moderated by Ixone Soroa, the Director General of the Basque Country government, and there was also a good mix of fishing sector representatives, both from the tuna purseинers and from the surface longliners that are targeting not only tunas but also tuna-like species such as certain types of sharks and swordfish. And it was also it was introduced the panel by an MEP, Ollane, from Renew. And also I forgot to say that the previous panel was the keynote speaker was Nicolas Gonzalez from the Socialist Party. So having said that, I will pass the floor again to Ivan to read the recommendations of the tuna fisheries.
Very briefly, and again, hoping to match the expertise of the panelists of the moderator yesterday. The tuna fisheries panel recognized the strategic role of tuna SFPAs in ensuring a stable supply of raw material to the European Union processing industry and contributing to food security. It also recommended to improve the coherence and the communication between tuna agreements and RFMO frameworks to ensure consistency in management measures and access to fisheries resources. Recommended to promote a level playing field among fleets by ensuring that all operators, including third country fleets, comply with equivalent standards on sustainability, control, transparency, and labor conditions. Also to strengthen monitoring, control and surveillance, MCS systems, including through capacity building, digitalization and cooperation with partner countries and control authorities, including through regional VMS and tuna RFMOs, in tuna RFMOs. It also recommended to promote equally stringent measures across all gear types, avoiding policies that single out the specific gears, devices or fleets for commercial advantage. And finally, to review the cumulative impact of EU fisheries regulation and RFMO decisions on the viability of the tuna fleet, with a view to reversing its ongoing decline and safeguarding of the EU capacity to maintain and conclude SFPAs. Also, to explore options to mitigate the impact. Thank you.
Okay, and the very last report, and we will conclude here our deliberations and conclusions. It's on the panel on the small pelagic fisheries. That was moderated by Esteban Cipriano from the government of Canarias. And the rapporteur in this case will be our first vice chair, also coordinator of the NGOs, Vania Bulperhost. Vania, please, you have the floor.
Thank you and good morning. So indeed, we had a very interesting discussion on small pelagics yesterday. So in the panel, there was a representative of the French authorities. There was somebody from the Global Roundtable of Marine Ingredients, somebody from the pelagic fisheries sector, and also a representative of Mauritania. So also just to put it in context, small pelagics, in especially West Africa, they really move from one of the northern parts to the south and vice versa. And so this is really a shared resource that really needs to be taken care of jointly. And is also in some parts overfished. So, for example, there are some SFPAs where there's no access for the EU fleet in Guinea-Bissau, for example, because they are overfished. There's no possibility for the EU to fish there because there's no surplus. So here it is really important indeed that as these are regional stocks, they are managed also in such a way. So the discussion really focused on how are we going to manage these stocks better. Should we have an RFMO? Should there be national measures or should there be regional measures? I think the conclusion was that at least there should be multi-annual regional management plans in the ideal situation. But also we were all, the whole panel was acknowledging the difficulty in getting this into reality. and also that at least there should be national measures taken to make sure that these stocks are not overexploited. So the Mauritanian national management plan was also mentioned as one of the first good steps to start managing these resources better. One of the key things that was mentioned also was the level playing field. So it's not clear because of the implementation of the transparency clause what other fleets are getting in terms of access conditions or in terms of fishing opportunities. So really here the priority was to the European Commission to make sure that this information is available. So what are other fleets doing, and what is also actually the cumulative impact on these small pelagic stocks in these waters? Because also it was mentioned from the industry side that they might not be worth it in the long term if indeed the stocks continue to be overfished and the fishing opportunities are not there. So to go to the conclusions that we put together, it was also indeed to really have the support for a regional science-based participatory management approach for small pelagic stocks in line with regional frameworks that exist. So including making sure that there's appropriate allocation mechanisms prioritizing the use of small pelagics for human consumption. So this came back also in the previous panel. It's really also the link to the fish meal and fish oil fishery. And so also, as I mentioned before, there's really a need for scientific research and to really reinforce this. So use the sectoral support for data collection and for monitoring tools. And enhance also the regional cooperation. I think there's interesting examples also from COMAFAT where they have multinational research initiatives on certain stocks. This could also be something that could be explored on small pelagics. So there is a need to use sectoral support for this, as I said, but also enhance regional cooperation and highlighting the role of CCAF to ensure continuity and robustness of the stock assessments. Again, as I mentioned, improve transparency and a level playing field by reporting what's happening at sea, also from non-EU fleets, and also to include in the transparency clause reporting on fish meal and fish oil production. And indeed to make sure that these fisheries continue to contribute to food security by encouraging through SFPAs and other partnership agreements that we use small pelagics for human consumption, making sure also that there's appropriate landing facilities, storage and processing infrastructure in partnership countries. This is indeed something that was mentioned by the representative of the industry. And also to further support the resilience of local fisheries value chains by promoting infrastructure in port, also access to market and skills. Then also to enhance the coherence between bilateral SFPAs and fostering coordination with regional management initiatives and aligning relevant technical measures where appropriate. And finally, to address the technical and access constraints that undermine the economic viability of the EU fleet. So indeed, it was mentioned that there might be different access conditions for other non-EU fleets, and that this needs to be at least assessed and to see how we could address this. Thank you.
Many thanks, Vanya, for the comprehensive reading of the recommendations. It's, as you can see, there is a lot of ideas and concepts that we have developed throughout the last years and have been all encapsulated into yesterday's discussions, which were very, very rich. We will make sure we provide you the evidence in writing and with the dedicated by-panel. Now I'm going to give the floor to the host and the president of the Fisheries Committee, Carmen Crespo. Very many thanks again for hosting us. Sorry if we've been a bit beyond. I know you have a precious time, so you have now the opportunity to react to our recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much and congratulations. I'm speaking Spanish, okay? Bueno, en primer...
First and foremost, I would like to thank the panelists for the work carried out yesterday. I think that the recommendations are very interesting. And also I would like to thank you all for being here, especially to the LDAC and the EESC, because I think that the tasks we are undertaking now are prospective, are forward-looking, and that is the reason for which we are here. I would like to send my special thanks to the Council of Andalusia, to my dear Carlos, to the Basque Country, which is present, and also to Paco Miliana, who's absent because he's sick. and also to Carmen Buendia, who's a member of this Fisheries Committee. I would like to thank Spain for its representation, and concretely to the Spanish government and the governments of all countries represented in this room. We are all working together to improve the conditions of the sector. So I think that this meeting is insightful and can lead to the coordination of further meetings. As chair of the Fisheries Committee, I would like to illustrate our work within the European Parliament. I will start with initiatives and meetings and agreements. Well, with regard to them, we think that all these sustainable agreements are an opportunity for fisheries, but also for all countries. And we should consider all these agreements through this perspective. And on top of that, all these agreements are very positive. They are not disruptive. We tackle all these agreements as opportunities for the European Union, the European consumers, and the countries with which we have signed all these agreements, and we take this into account when we have to seal some agreements. The European Commission, which is represented here through different councils and committees, are working together to reactivate key agreements or dormant agreements, such as the one we have with Morocco or Mauritania, Mauritius, Seychelles, or Guinea-Bissau. On the other hand, we need to speed up all these agreements because transparency is key, and the wordings of the agreements are also essential for our future of our union, but we shouldn't be so slow. We shouldn't take more than 6 months in implementing an agreement, as we can witness right now. So we would like to highlight the speed of the implementation of this agreement, and also the quality jobs this sector can have. So employment is basic. We have sustainability, of course, health, and social matters. These 3 aspects are key when dealing with these agreements. And I think that these agreements have reaped qualitative benefits because we are also tackling the role that women play in society, or sustainability, which is an important factor included in the agreements now, or the cooperation with third countries. These agreements are part of oceans diplomacy, and without any doubt, the Ocean Pact that the European Commission has promoted is paramount in order to have equal conditions where fisheries play a pivotal role. You already know that fisheries are very prominent for the EU, but also for the whole world. And now we have an agreement which is a pillar, which is a very relevant competence for the European Union. As we were mentioning earlier, decisions should be clear in order to tackle sustainability-related matters and the societal aspect included in this agreement. And especially
está ocupando un espacio especial dentro del pacto.
Negative. So within this Ocean Pact, we should include all these aspects. And I would like to emphasize that we cannot leave anyone, any community behind. Some communities are dependent on these agreements signed by the EU, and we should include all these actors that promote the regional development. And apart from that, in all these gatherings, we have included all actors, and we have given voice to all these actors that were silenced. So congratulations, because now we have some measures which are clear. We have the sustainability, the health and societal factors included in all these agreements. And of course, respect should be present in the fisheries sector. The European Union should work towards reciprocity, among others. This is crucial, and so we are fostering evidence and data. Sometimes we conclude an agreement, a way of working, but we do not deep dive in the assessments. And in order to achieve these goals, we need data, we need a DG Trade, a DG Sante, and DG Mare. All these three DGs should be working together in order to assess exhaustively all these measures. So now we have some agricultural and environmental issues, and the European Union should be able to control the traceability and all these pieces of information in order to assess present times and to be more coordinated and detailed when concluding agreements in the future. So we should promote traceability, sustainability, and information exchange, because now we are lacking a substantial amount of evidence, and this is fundamental for this sector.
Incorporemos.
We need to integrate consumers. We need to integrate also local development, which is important in order to control better our food and the food dimension, but also so we can have better agreements and how we act upon them, because this is going to be useful in the future, so that with this evidence we can show that we are present, and in this way we can make the international community to see what Europe is doing, that we are fostering sustainable agreements, and that we want to do it even better than before. Therefore, all these elements are important, and besides data and evidence, we need to avoid bureaucracy. At the beginning of my speech, I said that sometimes bureaucracy takes up to 6 months. Sometimes it is necessary, but sometimes it isn't. The world is not waiting for us. The geopolitical circumstances are waiting for us. We need to expedite our different agreements as well as the cooperation between states. We have to demonstrate it right now. We have to do it as quickly as possible and as soon as possible. We need to lead by example. We need to eliminate bureaucracy. There are different perspectives across the board, but at the Fisheries Council it has been mentioned that it is important to revise plans that have too much bureaucracy or too much red tape. I'm talking about the omnibus package. In certain areas it is not related. We need to have an overview on these. There's also the deep waters rules, where there are certain places, areas that are not affected. But once we have all the research, we need to act upon it. We need to expedite it. There must be proper control, not only in fishing areas, but also in different areas that have difficulties. It is also important to provide better legislation to the sector. We need to spend time in what needs to be done. We need to not waste time on other topics that do not benefit us at all. The Parliament has to do it, as well as the Commission, the Council and the Member States. Not only those that have coasts of fishing communities. Fishing is not only about food, it's about trade, it's about industry. We're talking about, for instance, technological developments. It's not only about certain limitations. Countries that do not have coasts also need to take action, because in the end it might have an impact on consumers. Therefore, it is important to promote sustainable fisheries partnerships agreement, to have transparency, and to also help third countries, and for us to lead by example. As I mentioned before, through the traceability of these agreements, it could be done. In the future, these agreements will be done in a correct, coherent manner. And let's show the world how Europe does it. And I think it is brilliant to also help fishing communities in third countries. Congratulations on the event. Thank you so much for sharing the conclusions. In Europe, fisheries are important. It affects citizens, the sector. It helps us fight climate change. And to have agreements that will allow us to have better and beneficial relationships with fishing communities. I believe that if we act quickly, we will lead by excellence. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Carmen, por tu sensibilidad.
Thank you very much, Carmen, for your words. And thank you so much for your summary and for the added value. It goes in line with what has been discussed, and this will allow us to provide technical advice to the European Commission. We do have a special relationship with the Parliament. It is here where decisions are being made, after all. Therefore, we will continue establishing a relationship with the European Parliament and the Secretariat of the Fisheries Council. There is an MEP with us. I would like to give you 5 minutes to pose your questions. If there are no questions, then we will move on to the conclusion. And then lastly, I will give the floor to Carmen in order to conclude this event. Now we give you the floor. Is there an MEP that would like to ask a question? Well, if there are no questions, I would like to give the floor to Charlotte from Digimar. Charlotte, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
First of all, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for this yesterday and today discussion. As you said, it's encapsulate long discussion that we had already, and we are working closely together. And it was a good time to gather together and to continue reflecting and to move forward, including because it's an important and I would say a cornerstone time for the external fisheries dimension. It's difficult to not repeat what you have already said, but I think it's important to emphasize that we went through a long journey on fisheries agreement, and it's important to stress that the instrument, SFPA, is still confirmed as a cornerstone of our EU external fisheries strategy. Because it provides a transparent instrument, it provides a rule-based framework for access, and it provides an opportunity to support our partners' country in developing their own fishery strategy. However, it's still important to reflect and to adapt this instrument, including because we are in a very volatile geopolitical context. We also face an increasing and sometimes unfair competitions. And because we hear this legitimate voice for more consultation, more transparency, and more sharing of the benefits. And this is a key element that we need to take on board further. And we also have to recognize that we might have in the future to do all of that, to do more with less. However, we need to recognize our force, our strengths. We have an amazing opportunity with our power on market and trade, and we need to further build on that. We also need, as you already said, to further work on our ocean diplomacy, and we need to be more proactive, proud of what we are doing, and communicate and support the way we think we should move forward. So going back to the SFPA, what we heard yesterday and this morning is that we might not need to reinvent the wheel. We might just need to do better what we have already started doing. And I would again repeat, we need to be more transparent, we need to be more inclusive, and we need to be more impactful, including with our third partner country citizens. This we will, and I think we have a consensus as well on that, we will only do it in continuing to be consistent on applying the core standards that the CFP is giving. So meaning high-level standards. We will lead by example, as you said. And for that, we have heard, and I think it's challenging, but we want to embed this challenge in terms of stakeholder participation. We need to make sure that they are in the table at the right time. And we need to have more results on the ground. And I'm talking to our partner country, but also in our EU countries. And we need to be more visible. I think few of the recommendation was to better communicate. We need to fight the misinformation on SFPA. We need to gain momentum on how SFPA are useful and are an instrument for a win-win situation. I'm not going into detail, even if it's not a detail, but dormant agreement, yes, we need to tackle them. Yes, we need to speed up the administrative procedure. Yes, we need to better hear what the stakeholder from the third partner country wants. Yes, this is obvious, but we will act on that. I think one last element that we understand and we will take into account is this regional approach. And I think we will gain with that more efficiency, more consistency, which is also key in our partnership. So of course, it's hard to mention all the key elements and the key recommendation that you provided to us. I think it is essential and it is at the right time. So thanks a lot for that. I would only like to stress, my turn, to stress on the tight timeline, because the strategy is supposed to be released during the last quarter of the year. So the report of this yesterday and today meeting should be released next week, and we should communicate on this next week if we want to make sure that this then digest and translated into our strategy. So so thanks a lot again for that, and yeah, we have work to do now. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. We take up the challenge that you say to us. We will deliver by next week, and we always feel listened by the DG Mare B3 unit team. We have to say we would like to encourage your work, and I think one of the recommendations yesterday was to enhance as well the resources in particular for DG Mare, but also for your unit. Before closing the meeting and giving back the floor to Carmen, I just really wish to, because I totally forgot at the beginning, and this is my personal fault, this wouldn't have happened without the partnership with the European and Economic and Social Committee. They are the role of the voice of the civil society, business, and citizens in the European institutions. So our host was Javier Garat. He's member of the NAT, so I'm going to give a short intervention of 2 minutes to Javier so he can maybe share with us his impressions. Please go ahead, Javier.
Muchas gracias, Alex. Unas breves palabras. Simplemente decir.
Thank you very much, Alex. I'll be as brief as possible. As everyone has mentioned, it has been a pleasure working with the LDAC. The staff that was present there at the end of the event told me that it had been such a pleasure to work with the LDAC team. So congratulations, and thank you so much, Alex, Manuela and Marta, for your hard work. The doors are open for you for any events that you would like to organize in the future. At the EESC, we are trying to address the fisheries topic even more. And bit by bit, we have been moving forward. The chair is convinced, and I think that we might be able to organize discussions on fisheries or environmental issues, but we still haven't organized anything specifically about fisheries, but we are following the right path. As I mentioned before, our doors are open, so contact us anytime. Thank you so much, Javier. I'm so happy to hear that it has been a great collaboration. Now I would like to give the floor to Carmen. Thank you so much for being here present.
Próximamente estaremos en el Parlamento.
we're going to have another meeting about fisheries here at European Parliament, such an important topic for Europe and the world.
Pronto. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias, Carmen. Muchas gracias.